From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin tonight with rogue weather. It is a mess out there across a great swath of the country. A relentless snowfall in some parts of the nation, freezing rain in others. It has been very difficult going, even where tough winters are a matter of course. And in those parts where they count on a little snow, not a lot, this winter has overwhelmed the system. First, on the general scope of things, here's ABC's Aaron Brown.
In the Northeast, it is the worst day of the worst week of the worst winter in at least 10 years. The snow started falling overnight and has not stopped. Up to 2 inches an hour, 18 inches in some places.
I'm sick of it. I'm fed up. You know, it's killing business.
It is worse than that. Many cities and states are facing serious budget and manpower problems as well. In Connecticut, once again, they need salt and sand.
We're going to have to watch out how much material we put out on the road.
Pennsylvania says it needs federal disaster relief to pay for overtime. Road crews everywhere need a day off.
We've been trying to plow down the ice and snow now for 2 or 3 days, and it's like a never-ending battle.
In Boston, the city spent double its snow removal budget before today's storm, and even there, a place used to harsh winters, people today were stocking up on food. In the South, it is what one forecaster called slees, a combination of snow, sleet, and rain. In West Virginia, the worst flooding in nearly a decade. In Kentucky, the worst ice storm in 20 years. Across the South, hundreds of thousands of people are still without power. New York's Central Park looked like a dream. Everything else, a nightmare.
I think it's ridiculous this year. I never want to see it again.
A snow emergency was declared. 1,300 plows were on the street. The city has spent $20 million on snow removal so far this year in 12 major storms. That's $10 million over budget for a city already in a budget crisis. It has been snowing like this or harder in some places since 3 o'clock this morning. It should stop late tonight. Warmer tomorrow. Then Sunday, more snow, more sleet, more misery. Aaron Brown, ABC News, New York.
Well, in case your local forecaster hasn't told you why we have so much bad weather, the jet stream needs a good chiropractor. It is out of alignment. The jet stream is like a high-speed river of air. During the winter, it generally flows from west to east, straight through the center of the country. But this winter, take a look. It has wandered up to Alaska, picked up a large supply of bitterly cold air, and then swept into the southeast, where it's been sucking up storms generated in the Gulf of Mexico. And then it's carried the whole disruptive package deep into the northeast. The result, in terms of plans disrupted and money lost, is enormous. Our next report is from Jackie Judd.
For the second time in 3 weeks, the federal government shut down, costing taxpayers $60 million in wages paid to people who couldn't get to work. Far more money was involved when the New York Stock Exchange closed an hour and a half early. More than $2 billion worth of stock are typically traded in that period of time. And retailers were hit hard again today. January sales were down 0.5 percentage point because of bad weather, according to a new government report, and this month may not be any better.
It's been a tough January and early February so far.
Tyson's Corner outside of Washington is one of the busiest malls in America. Today, only 3 of the 5 department stores there were open. Customers were almost non-existent. The day was a sales disaster.
Typically, we would do anywhere from $1.5 to $2 million on this Friday. I expect to do maybe 1 to 2% of that figure.
And all along the East Coast, kids were at home or at play because schools were closed.
It's rough. It's real rough. Too many kids at home, too small space at home.
The snow shut down schools in Yonkers, New York for the 8th time this winter. And like so many other districts, it's been forced to find makeup days.
Well, what we're going to do is take some days from the Memorial Day weekend, the spring recess, for example, and we're also extending school in June.
So while it might be fun today, sooner or later, there is a price to pay for this weather. Jackie Judd, ABC News, Washington.
This is Ned Potter. Think of America's travel network as a row of dominoes, and you'll appreciate what happens when one domino, the Northeast, falls. New York's Kennedy Airport closed from this morning till at least 2 tomorrow afternoon. And with similar stories at Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Newark, the effects could be felt from Los Angeles to London.
If this was in London and Heathrow, they'd have had the airways cleared and the planes would have been off.
In fact, London's Heathrow was in fine shape, but half the flights from there to the U.S. had nowhere to go.
There's passengers going to be stranded. The only thing we can do is to keep the passengers informed as best as we can.
In Miami, the sun was out. Northbound planes were not. A similar case for Denver. Continental Airlines has a giant hub there, but by canceling its New York service, it gave up on 300 of its 1,400 daily flights. Railroads did better, albeit slower than normal. Amtrak said its load was average for a Friday, namely full. Rail passengers who stayed home were replaced by air passengers hoping to get anywhere.
We're headed for Pittsburgh. We expect to be there about 10 o'clock tonight. I don't know when we'd get there by U.S. Air.
Actually, Amtrak said it only canceled 5 trains out of 80 in the Northeast Corridor. But nearly every other one was late because of snow-clogged engines, frozen doors, and crews that couldn't get to work from their own homes. How many travelers held up? Airlines and railroads were too short-staffed even to come up with totals. Ned Potter, ABC News, Philadelphia.
Just one more note about the weather affecting travel. The Space Shuttle Discovery had to do an extra loop around the Earth today, waiting for bad weather to clear out before landing at Cape Canaveral. 5 Americans and a Russian astronaut had been in space for 8 days. And here are 2 pictures from the Midwest which tell you everything you need to know about winter. That's the lakefront in Chicago. Lake Michigan frozen over as far as the eye can see. And the largest of the Great Lakes, Lake Superior, is, minus that one crack, completely frozen over, shore to shore. All 31,800 square miles. Hasn't happened in 16 years. When we come back, the other news. Confrontation at the White House today. The president and the Japanese prime minister are very direct with one another. The confrontation in Lillehammer. The other skaters who may take the gold. And our person of the week, the witness.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, brought to you by Cotton Incorporated.
At the White House today, 2 world leaders talking far more bluntly than world leaders usually speak in public. President Clinton met with the Japanese Prime Minister Morihiro Hosokawa, and each of them acknowledged that they have failed to come to terms on trade. Despite agreement after agreement, the U.S. trade deficit with Japan jumped 20% last year, up to $50 billion, which helps explain what happened today. At the White House, ABC's Britt Hume.
It was the rarest of events, a summit that had turned into a showdown. Not only was there no agreement in any of the 4 trade areas under negotiation, autos, medical technology, insurance, and telecommunications, but neither side tried to hide the disagreement. Indeed, the president, with Prime Minister Hosokawa at his side, blasted Japan for its trade practices.
Even though we have negotiated over 30 trade agreements with Japan since 1980, Japan still remains less open to imports than any other G7 nation.
Mr. Clinton said that in Tokyo last July, the Japanese had agreed to negotiate not only opening their markets, but also using numerical targets, such as the amount of foreign goods sold, to measure progress. But in the talks, he said, the Japanese refused.
Japan's offers made in these negotiations simply did not meet the standards agreed to in Tokyo.
For his part, Hosokawa argued the U.S. was seeking not free trade, but what's called managed trade, in which governments decide exactly how much business other countries will do according to set numerical targets.
We do not want managed trade, and I think I'm speaking on behalf of everyone when I say that. We don't want numerical targets to gain a life of its own, because at the end of the day, we believe that will lead to managed trade.
No one knows what will happen next. The betting here at the White House is that this failed summit will be more of a problem for Hosokawa than for Mr. Clinton, and that will lead to concessions from Tokyo. The risk, however small, is that this fight will lead instead to an all-out trade war, damaging both the standard of living and the economy in both countries. Britt Hume, ABC News, the White House.
Overseas in Sarajevo today, where ceasefires usually break down within hours, it has been calm for 2 days. There's been some shooting. The United Nations commander blames what he calls renegade troops on both sides, but he says that overall he is reasonably encouraged. The latest on Bosnia today from ABC's John McCarthy.
More Serb guns were put under UN control today in Sarajevo. As the uneasy ceasefire continued, the U.S. was exerting new pressure on two fronts. On the military side, a major reinforcement. 26 more fighters and bombers are being sent to Italy in case the Serbs do not meet the deadline for removing their artillery from Sarajevo. On the diplomatic side, an important change in American strategy. Instead of being a neutral observer in peace talks, the Clinton administration will now become deeply involved with the Bosnian government, helping them to formulate a position, pressuring them to compromise, and then adding U.S. muscle to make their case to the Serbs and Croats.
This is not something, obviously, that can produce a result overnight, but we want to add our weight now to the process and see what we can do.
Since the U.S. and its NATO allies threatened to bomb Serb guns, the Russians have been sharply critical. President Clinton, after 2 days of trying, finally managed to reach Russian President Yeltsin on the phone to explain.
We agreed that we had the same long-term objective, which was achieving a just peace agreement, and the same short-term objective to relieve the shelling of Sarajevo.
One other change for the U.S., a warning that if there is a peace agreement in Bosnia, the U.S. may not provide many of the soldiers to enforce it, even though at one time the president promised as many as half the troops could be American. John McWethy, ABC News, the State Department.
In Washington today, a former Arkansas state employee accused Mr. Clinton of sexually harassing her while he was governor. Paula Jones said it happened in 1991 and wants the president to confirm that she rejected his advances and apologize. The White House says it didn't happen and called Mrs. Jones' allegations pathetic. In our next section, another trial involving police, another beating, and a videotape. Ms. Hutchinson had called the charges a witch hunt by Democrats. In Athens, Texas today, another videotape has taken center stage in a trial. A passenger in a car is now on trial for assaulting 2 police officers last fall. It has become a case of courtroom testimony versus the videotape. Here's ABC's Charles Murphy.
When Trooper Brian Barnhart stopped a car near Athens in East Texas last September for an apparent violation, his video camera on the dashboard was running.
See that headlight out?
The trooper arrested the driver for outstanding traffic tickets. The passenger appeared nervous.
Calm down, okay? I know, but you...
He gave the officer the wrong age and first name.
Stay still. Cross your feet. Why you got going? Because you want to tell me who you are and you want to... Lorenzo Costa.
By now, the trooper's patience was apparently exhausted.
I tell you what, just get on the ground. Get on the ground. Get on the ground. Get on the ground. I ain't got to lay on the ground, man.
Trooper Barnhart began hitting Colston with a baton. He was joined by Deputy Sheriff Jim Langford. Colston put up fierce resistance.
Get down. 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 Down.
He knocked down the deputy, then wrestled the trooper to the ground. As he walked away, the trooper fired 2 times, hitting Colston in the shoulder and buttocks. A county grand jury refused to indict the trooper. Colston, whose right arm is partially paralyzed and has had a colostomy, is on trial for assaulting the 2 officers. Today, the trooper testified he shot Colston because he feared for his life. Charles Murphy, ABC News, Dallas.
Some economic news from the government today. The first report on inflation for 1994. Wholesale prices in January rose only 0.2%. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrials lost 0.5 point today to close at 38.94. With the short day, because of the snow, the volume was light. For the week, stocks gained about 23 points. A spokesman for Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis has confirmed today that she is being treated for lymphoma, which is a cancer of the lymphatic system. It was apparently detected early, and doctors say her prognosis is excellent. Mrs. Onassis is 64. We'll be back in a moment. In Oregon today, Tonya Harding's lawyers were in court trying to prevent the United States Olympic Committee from going ahead with a hearing next week in Norway. A hearing which could determine whether Ms. Harding is kicked off the team. Ms. Harding herself was on the ice today, trying to have some fun with a friend. No serious practice, at least not for the cameras. So assuming Ms. Harding does compete, who has the best shot at the gold? Tonya or Nancy? Or, here's ABC's Dick Schaff.
even before the incident, neither Tanya Harding nor Nancy Kerrigan was favored to win the gold medal in figure skating. Now, their training schedules disrupted, their lives invaded for weeks by the media, their chances are even slimmer. Kerrigan, a bronze medalist in the 1992 Olympics, is slightly less of a long shot.
I wouldn't be shocked if Nancy Kerrigan won the gold medal. I would be absolutely floored if Tanya Harding won it.
The women who finished 1, 2, 3 in the world last year, 16-year-old Oksana Bayul of the Ukraine, as fresh and free as a colt on ice, Surya Banali of France, who loves to attempt the impossible, and Lu Chen of China, who skates with a serene grace. They are the favorites to sweep the medals in Lillehammer. The Americans, almost an afterthought.
It's probably between Surya and Oksana and Lu Chen and Nancy and Tanya.
What does the elegant Kerrigan have to do to win?
I think Nancy Kerrigan could win the gold medal, but she's going to have to do something she's never done before in a major competition, which is stay on her feet. In other words, not fall.
And Harding, to have a chance, has to hit the athletic jump she delivers in practice under the pressure of competition.
She hasn't hit it in 3 years. She's fallen every time.
Clearly, gold or even silver for an American woman would be a surprise. But there have certainly been enough of them in women's figure skating this year. Dick Schaap, ABC News, Lillehammer.
In a moment, our Person of the Week. Finally, this evening, our Person of the Week. This week, we have chosen a man who wanted for so long to tell a story. Another man's story. Some of us who've seen the film Schindler's List and come away marveling at what Oskar Schindler managed to pull off during World War II have wondered for a moment why it took so long for Schindler's story to be told. This is the man who persevered until it was.
The survivors, how they call us, and I don't like it. We are not survivors. We survive to tell the truth. We are witnesses to the truth.
And what a truth it is. Leopold Page is telling the world a story about the value of life during one of the darkest times in human history. It is a story he has in common with 1,300 other Polish Jews who were saved from extermination by the Nazis. The man who saved them was a Nazi himself, Oskar Schindler.
Sent by dear God to save us. He was an angel. I wrote a story about him, saved by angels.
Is it possible to be both an angel and a Nazi at the same time? The Oskar Schindler of Schindler's List was a German businessman who could no longer ignore the nightmare Adolf Hitler was inflicting on Jews in the Second World War. The Holocaust that consumed the lives of 6 million men, women, children.
What's a person worth? No. What's one worth to you?
Schindler literally purchased the lives of over 1,000 Jews in the Polish city of Krakow by bribing the keepers of death camps. He spent almost $600,000 in 6 months, an enormous amount of money in the 1940s.
He never was a Nazi. The Torah has a very beautiful saying over there. When one person saves a human being, is saving the world.
To be on Schindler's List meant to be spared from the gas chamber, to become labor in Schindler's factory, but to be safe. Leopold Page was on that list, and so was his wife Mila. Schindler rescued her from the death camp Auschwitz just in time. That's when Leopold Page made a promise to Oskar Schindler.
And I promised that his name I will try to make a household name.
And he has, through the film by Steven Spielberg that this week received a record 12 Academy Award nominations. A story that might never have been told without the diligence of a man so determined to keep a promise.
From the first day I arrived in New York City in 1947, I started to talk about Oskar Schindler and his deed. This was the time when people didn't want to think about what happened.
Leopold Page thought about it all the time. He moved to Los Angeles and eventually opened a luggage shop in Beverly Hills. At this year's Golden Globe Awards, Spielberg explained how Page finally got the world's attention.
Every time somebody came into his luggage shop, he would stop them and say, "Are you a writer?"
In 1980, Page told the story of Schindler to a customer who listened, the Australian author Thomas Keneally.
He's such a strong character. He's such a talker. Every argument I put up for not writing such a book, he demolished.
This is a very nice picture of me here, and the book is dedicated to me.
The message in this film is so clear. The world must never forget what can happen when evil prevails. The message is needed today, says Leopold Page, because it is happening again.
Look in Yugoslavia, who is suffering? Only the innocent children, women, and elderly who are sitting home. But the children are guilty of what?
Leopold Page hopes the world's leaders will watch this film and read the book. One might think that because Oskar Schindler's story has had such an impact that Page's promise might have been fulfilled. But as Schindler says in the film, perhaps I have not done enough.
Never you can pay your debt for this type of time that he saved my life, my wife's life, and 1,300 I consider obligated till I die.
And so we choose Leopold Page. He's done us all a great service, insisting first that the world not forget, and by focusing there on what is happening in Bosnia, warning the world that when evil gets the upper hand, it can happen again. That's our report on World News Tonight. On 2020 Tonight, Barbara Walters' interview with the 1960s radical Catherine Ann Power. I'm Peter Jennings. Good night.